welcome to the podcast. The podcast of the ancient Sumerians. What really do we know? We're going to dive in today and just get a feeling of what our listeners know and what we need to discuss. Enough jacking around, let's get to it. Hello and welcome to the first episode of our podcast, where we dive into the mysteries of ancient civilizations. Today, we'll be discussing the Sumerians and what we really know about them. I'm your host, the one and only Jason Malecha, and joining me today as our guest speaker is Professor Frank Finkelbottom, an expert in ancient Mesopotamian history. Professor Smith, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Jason. I'm excited to be here.
So, let's start with the basics. What do we know about the Sumerians and what was life like back then?
Well, the Sumerians were one of the earliest civilizations in human history, and they lived in what is now modern-day Iraq. They invented many things that we still use today, such as the wheel, the plow, and writing. Life back then was tough, with harsh environmental conditions and constant wars among the city-states.
Fascinating. But some people argue that we don't actually know much about the Sumerians, and that much of what we think we know is just speculation. What do you think about that, Professor?
That's a fair point, Jason. We do have limited archaeological evidence to go on, and much of what we know about the Sumerians comes from written texts that are often fragmentary and difficult to interpret. However, I believe that we have made significant strides in our understanding of the Sumerians in recent decades, and there is much more to discover.
I see. But what about the controversy surrounding the Sumerians and their supposed connection to ancient aliens? Some people claim that the Sumerians were visited by extraterrestrial beings who gave them advanced knowledge and technology.
Wow, really? Yes, I'm aware of those theories. While it's certainly an intriguing idea, there is no scientific evidence to support the idea that aliens visited the Sumerians. In fact, most of the claims made by ancient astronaut theorists have been thoroughly debunked by archaeologists and historians.
Well, some people might disagree with you there, Professor. Our next guest, for example, is a firm believer in the ancient alien theory. Please welcome to the show, Mr. Kiko Calandria.
Jason, thank you for having me. I think it's clear that the Sumerians were in contact with advanced beings from another planet. They had knowledge of things like astronomy and mathematics that simply could not have come from human sources.
With all due respect, Mr. Calandria, that's simply not true. The Sumerians were a highly advanced civilization in their own right, and they developed their knowledge and technology through trial and error, just like any other culture.
Oh, come on, Professor. How do you explain the fact that the Sumerians depicted these beings in their artwork and literature? They even had a god named Anu who came down from the heavens to rule over them. Explain that one to me, Mr. Know-It-All.
That's just mythology, Mr. Calandria. It's not evidence of actual extraterrestrial contact. Mythology, just like the Greeks and Roman mythology, with Zeus and Hades and all that fake stuff, which is why they call it mythology, you smart guy.
You're just trying to cover up the truth, Professor. I can't believe you're so closed-minded.
Okay, let's calm down here, guys. We can all agree that the Sumerians were a fascinating civilization, and there's still much to learn about them. Right? No need to get pissed off on the show here. Just a simple debate between friends.
I can't take this anymore. You're all just ignoring the evidence in front of your faces. I'm done with this conversation. I'm leaving.
Well, that certainly got heated. Sorry to see Mr. Calandria go, but it looks like we'll have to wrap up this discussion for now. Thank you, Professor Finkelbottom, for joining us today and sharing your expertise on the Sumerians. It was interesting to say the least.
Thank you, Jason. It was a pleasure to be here, even if things did get a bit contentious.
That's all part of the fun of hosting a podcast, right? Join us next time as we explore another ancient civilization and uncover the mysteries of the past. Thanks for tuning in. Now, tune in tomorrow for our next show starring the one and only Mr. Billy Carson. He is the best at what he does and is extremely knowledgeable when it comes to the ancient artifacts and beings. Check out the preview.